what this is we travel through Jesus' last moments on earth. And starts in the Garden of Gethsemane, and then it moves on to the cross, and then to the crucifixion, and then to him giving up his spirit. It's a very powerful service as we go through the book of John, or the last few chapters of John, the Gospel of John. We will extinguish a candle for every step that we're going to take. And so eventually we will get to the Christ candle in the center, one that we burn every single Sunday, and where that one will be extinguished. And when that happens, you will leave in darkness. You'll leave the sanctuary quiet and prayer and contemplation of what Jesus did for us. Should be light enough in here for safety to be able to exit. Shouldn't be too big of a problem for us. There should be enough light in here to do that. The last church I was at, it was within the walls, and there was no outside light allowed in, so when they turned the lights off, it was pitch black. And it was hard. I had to put little night lights along the sanctuary. Here we're not going to have that problem, but please be careful as you exit. And as you exit, please exit in silence, thinking about what Jesus Christ did for us. So, thank you for coming. Obviously, this is Good Friday, and where we celebrate and look at Jesus' last moments. So we're going to start, and Michael's going to begin with a song. And are they going to sing with us, or is this just, yeah? Okay. So let's bring down the lights, and then we'll start the service. Is everybody okay? Everybody good? Again, thank you all for coming.
There
When he had finished praying, Jesus left with his disciples and crossed the Kidron Valley. On the other side, there was a garden, and he had his disciples went into it. Now Judas, who betrayed him, knew the place because Jesus had often met there with his disciples. So Judas came to the garden, guiding a detachment of soldiers and some officials from the chief priests and the Pharisees. They were carrying torches, lanterns, and weapons. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them, "Who is it that you want?" They replied, "Jesus of Nazareth." "I am he," Jesus said. And when Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell onto the ground. And again, he asked them, "Who is it that you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they said. Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. If you are looking for me, then let these men go." This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. Quote, "I have not lost one of those that you've given me." Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. Jesus commanded Peter, "Put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" Then the detachment of soldiers, with its commander and the Jewish officials, arrested Jesus. They bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. And Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jewish leaders that it would be good if one man died for the people. Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus because this disciple was known to the high priest. He went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard. But Peter had to wait outside at the door. And the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, came back, spoke to the servant girl on duty there, and brought Peter in. "You aren't one of those man's disciples too, are you?" she asked Peter. He replied, "I'm not." It was cold, and the servants and the officials stood around a fire that they had made to keep warm. Peter also was standing with them, warming himself. Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. "I have spoken openly to the world," Jesus replied. "I always taught in the synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together, and I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me, and surely they will know what I said." When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face. "Is this the way that you answer the high priest?" he demanded. "If I said something wrong," Jesus said and replied, "I testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Meanwhile, Simon Peter was still standing there warming himself. So they asked him, "You aren't one of his disciples too, are you?" He denied it, saying, "I am not." One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. "Didn't I see you with him in the garden?" Again, Peter denied it. And at that moment, a rooster began to crow. Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now, it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanliness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover feast. So Pilate came to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he were not a criminal," they replied, "we would not have handed him over to you." Pilate said, "Take him away yourselves and judge him by your own law." "But we have no right to execute anyone," they objected. And this took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace. He summoned Jesus and he asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked. "Or did others talk to you about me?" Pilate said, "Am I a Jew? Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then?" said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I'm a king. In fact, the reason why I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of the truth listens to me." "What is this truth?" retorted Pilate. With this, he went out again, and the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him. But is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of the Passover? Do you want me to release the King of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they clothed him in a purple robe and went up to him again and saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they slapped him in the face. Once more Pilate came out and said to the Jews gathered there, "Look, I'm bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him." When Jesus came out bearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." As soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify! Crucify!" But Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him." The Jewish leaders insisted, "We have a law, and according to that law, he must die because he claimed to be the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid, and he went back inside the palace. "Where do you come from?" he asked Jesus. But Jesus gave him no answer. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said. "Don't you realize I have the power either to free you or to crucify you?" Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free. But the Jewish leaders kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be the king opposes Caesar." When Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judge's seat at the palace known as the Stone Pavement. It was the day of preparation of the Passover, and it was about noon. "Here is your king," Pilate said to the Jews. But they shouted, take him away, crucify him." "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked. "We have no king but Caesar," the chief priests answered. And finally, Pilate handed him over to be crucified. So the soldiers took charge of Jesus, carrying his own cross. And he went out to the place of the skull. There they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on each side, and Jesus in the middle. Pilate had a notice prepared and fastened it to the cross, and it read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." And many of the Jews read the sign, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and the sign was written in Arabic, Latin, and Greek. The chief priests of the Jews protested to Pilate, "Do not write the King of the Jews, but that man is claimed to be the King of the Jews." Pilate answered, "What I've written, I've written." And when the soldiers crucified Jesus, they took his clothes and dividing them into 4 shares, one for each of them, with the undergarment remaining, and this garment was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. "Let's not tear it," they said to one another. "Let's decide by lot who will get it." And this happened that the scripture might be fulfilled, and that said, quote, "They divided my clothes among them and cast lots for my garment." So this is what the soldiers did. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciples whom he loved standing nearby, he said to her, "Dear woman, here is your son." And to the disciple, "Here is your mother." From that time on, this disciple took her into her home. Later, knowing that everything had now been finished, and so that the scripture would be fulfilled, Jesus said, "I am thirsty." A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked a sponge on it and put the sponge on a stalk and of hyssop plant and lifted it to Jesus' lips. When he received the drink, Jesus said, "It is finished." And with that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit.